Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a CalSPRA webinar for August. This is one of our conference callback webinars. And so what that means is that we look at the data that you give us after the conference and we say, you know what, people really, really liked this session, so we should offer it again. Because if you've been to a CalSPRA conference, you know there are probably 5 or 6 at any given time that you would have liked to have gone to, but you only get to choose one. So this is our way of bringing those most popular and appreciated sessions back for our members to enjoy if they didn't get a chance to the first time. Or maybe you did and you just enjoyed it so much, you know you're going to pick up even more information. That's probably the case with this one. So my name is Trinette Markey. I'm your Executive Director for CalSPRA. We also have our past president, Jessica Hall. Jessica, would you like to? She's just going to do a princess wave today. She is working really, really hard on a CPRA. I know we all love all those. But she is here joining us today because she too wants to check out this great information. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about our presenter today. This is someone that I have admired from afar. She has presented a couple times at CalSPRA, and I never really got a chance to hang out with her until we started planning this webinar, and we hung out a little bit before this session. And I can tell you, you guys are going to absolutely love it. Oz Beckers is an experienced web designer and communicator skilled in creating inclusive, accessible, and visually coherent online experiences. Oz, that is a great way of putting that together. I'm definitely going to be admiring and acquiring that phrase. With her experience spanning multiple decades in industries, she has successfully led multiple international website redesigns, aligning with branding and accessibility regulations. Oz takes a collaborative approach, working with teams to enhance operational efficiency and communication, delivering results that empower districts to better serve their communities and foster growth. Her expertise includes managing social media platforms, developing web content, graphic design, and crafting digital communication strategies. She is extremely gifted because there are not many people in the world who are very, very good at communications and also very, very good at the tech side. And so we are blessed to have someone like that with us. And by the way, she is doing consulting. So if you feel like you need some help in this area, please do reach out to her. Oz, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Trinette. Wonderful introduction. I appreciate that a lot. And I am so stoked to be back. I had such a lovely experience at CalSPRA last March, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to share this information with you guys. With that, there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. There will be moments for questions, and Trinette's going to help me moderate those. And let's get this party rolling. I'm going to share my screen here. All right. Welcome again, everyone. And if you didn't catch it earlier, my name is Oz. I live up here in beautiful Northern California. Trinette went over a little bit about my experience already. And so I won't go too much into that, but I also have a lot of experience in learning management softwares and content management systems. And in my free time, I've been doing some independent contracting, and I've been consulting with platforms like Parent Square and your website and web content accessibility guidelines. I've spent the last 30 years as a multi-instrumentalist. I've been playing trombone for all those 30 years. I also do a lot of event production. I do a pool party series up here, which is really, really fun. And I'm an expert cat cuddler. I'm probably in the company of some expert cat cuddlers here as well, or some dog cuddlers. Hands in the chat or a little activity in the chat if you'd like to share your kitty cat pet love. Speaking of that, Charlie will be accompanying us today on our trip of our accessibility journey, just to add some levity and some brevity. And here we have our map, our route for today. We're going to talk about the framework of Web Content Accessibility Guideline. After the framework, we're going to talk about the ingredients inside of Web Content Accessibility. We're going to then talk about some examples of what to do and what not to do now that we have the language behind what we're looking at. And then our last stop for today is going to be that money stuff that we're really here for, the meat of the presentation. How can we get it to work, Oz? How can we fix everything? That'll be at the end of the presentation. And I also want to remind that this is a very broad stroke of content accessibility guidelines. There are many other specificities of content such as like PDF remediation, website remediation, web app remediation. There's all different avenues and different disciplines. This is a broad stroke to give you a foundation of so you can further venture into what you need to know. You don't know what you don't know kind of thing, but this will empower you a little bit more to venture forth in the weeds. Yeah, there's all kinds of resources out there. And I made this one because I felt there wasn't really anything covering a whole broad stroke. And so there's one thing I also want to get across that you've already encountered accessibility issues. And so you're more empowered and knowledgeable than you might think already. You've already encountered bad accessibility designs multiple times. Anytime you might have opened up a web page and the web video was already playing loudly, that's a bad design issue. If you ever try to access a portal on your website, on your phone, I apologize, on your phone, and you're having to squeeze and pinch in, that's bad design. If you're outside trying to view something on your phone and the contrast is not sufficient, you can't see it because the sun's too bright. Even if you might not consider yourself disabled, you are now suffering from bad accessibility design. So this applies to everybody. Again, we're going to feel more empowered because we realize, oh, this involves more than just me. And there are a lot of things you already do that help you get you closer to inclusion and making sure your designs are accessible. You know a lot more than you already think you do. So the framework and a little foundation of how this all works is not only going to apply to digital media or digital content, but it also works to physical media. But we're going to cover mostly the digital side, but the concepts and principles still kind of apply. You don't want to print out a physical poster with a red background and pink text, like you wouldn't want to display that on a website. So the concepts are still the same. So what are we here for? The big elephant in the room, WCAG, WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And these are just the standards to make sure the websites and documents and all the tools available to everybody, including apps and PDFs and flyers, that they're accessible to students and your community and your staff, making sure no one is left out. However you want to pronounce it, it doesn't matter. We're not expecting perfection. I go WCAG. Some people go WCAG. It doesn't matter. And that's the whole point here. We're including every version, however you want to say it. It doesn't matter. Just don't ever call me late for dinner. But it was founded back in 1994 by the World Wide Web Consortium, which is a consortium of group that makes sure websites operate the same way no matter what country you're operating from. You've also seen WCAG mentioned in Title II of ADA and also involved inside Section 504 and 508, involved with the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And just recently, back in 2024, the DOJ did finally make it a mandate requiring WCAG standards. And a little bit breaking down of what's going on inside Title II. Title II of the ADA and Section 504 was making sure that all public services included accommodations for people with disabilities, like school enrollment and online learning and district communications, making sure no one's excluded from that. But then 508 went further to make sure that includes the digital content. So 504, which is making sure no one's excluded from those services. And then 508 is making sure our digital content is available for everybody in those and all accommodations. So when we're looking at WCAG and this whole little gaggle of letters, we're going to break it down what it means, and so we can understand the kind of recipe we're trying to dial in. You see WCAG 2.2, 2.1, maybe you've seen AAA. We're going to break this down and how we interpret this. So WCAG, you usually have 2.1 or 2.0, 2. Et cetera, et cetera. These are the versions. You're probably familiar with this kind of already with iOS updates and stuff like that. Our first update was our first major update 2.0 was in 2008. And then in 2018, they did an upgrade that finally included mobile accessibility. So mobile accessibility is actually fairly new and is still being evolved. And in 2023, we added more requirements so that we can include more neurodiverse users and adapt more technology into our ecosphere. And then we're going to get more updates, of course. This is always evolving. 3.0 will come out eventually, and that's going to have extra steps to include a more holistic approach so that we're more adaptable in the future when more standards come into place, because there's always evolving technology in this. When you come across the A, the AA, or the AAA, these are your strengths of compliance. Single A is the one a lot of people are probably familiar with, where you get alt text or keyboard navigation. That's the bare minimum requirement. Then you have AA, where you have all the A points, and you also include the AA points where you have sufficient color contrast. You have clear navigation, your menus make sense, your headings and your sub tabs make sense. You have helpful error messages. And then AAA, that's the highest strength of compliance. You don't run into too many of these websites, but when you do, they're very advanced and really cool, where you can adjust the contrast of the website live. You can also, in those videos, if there was a video found on a AAA website, there would be sign language interpretation, not just captions, where captions are always required, but this would have a sign language interpreter in the video. What you'll also find in a AAA website is that you would find live adaptability for font sizing and contrast. You've probably come across something like this already in tools and plugins, but a AAA website would have this inherently built in. And this is a really cool advanced technology. But then also you find that there would be the ability to disable background sounds in the videos found on AAA level websites. Very advanced. You don't find too many of these websites around. And again, why are we here? Why do we need to care about compliance? Is that when we care about compliance, we make sure everyone's included. We also know that we will encounter some penalties if we don't keep our stuff in compliance, but we don't want to be driven by fear of penalties. We want to make sure we have a culture of inclusion and inclusion here. Not only does accessibility design help disabled users, but good accessibility design helps everybody. It's just clean, efficient design that helps everyone. And again, you have a larger disabled population than you might think. 1 in 4 people have a disability. And then also when you encounter situations where you're in a compromised environment, if you're at a baseball game or an arena and you might not be able to hear something, you can't listen to the video, that would be a great opportunity to have captions, right? We've been there before. So accessibility is for everybody. We've talked a little about the framework. Now we're going to talk about a little bit of the ingredients that go inside this and what ingredient makes this kind of accessibility work and make everyone feel included. Take a little drink of water here. All right. The ingredients to compliance are broken down to a couple principles, and we break the principles called POUR. POUR is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And it's from these concepts that we're going to use to measure the media or the content, the PDF, is that does this measure up using these principles, and is this compliant? Can everyone read it? And again, perceivable, operable, understandable, robust. We're going to break each letter down and define them. After I define these letters, we'll go into examples after we have the letters in our language in mind. Perceivable. Perceivable means that the content needs to be delivered in formats that can be easily comprehensible. This sounds pretty obvious, but once we break it down, you understand, again, you've already been doing a lot of this. Perceivable means, and things can included in this concept, is going to include alt text, that kind of stuff. That goes under perceivable. Also, contrast, distinguishable colors, that falls under a perceivable concept or principle in a compliance. Operable. This means making sure your content can navigate with a tab. You can make sure you can navigate it with something other than a mouse. Somebody can use it no matter how they have to navigate the website. And if you have a very advanced website, you could even make it navigatable by voice. And also, what you want to make sure that if you ever have a website that has flashing animations, that would be kind of a non-compliance issue because it's following under the operable thing where if you have flashing animations, it can cause seizures. So that's an operable principle there. You don't want flashing lights. Not something you really encounter that often. Understandable, the next letter is that, again, content needs to be clear, predictable, and understand for all learners of all levels and all educators. You don't want to use big words. We want to keep our websites and our documents in the same consistent formatting. Make your menus consistent and make sense, the hierarchy levels and nesting and subcolumns. And understandable is where you need to make sure your forms and your links tell exactly what they're going to do and what's expected from the user. And again, we're going to break examples down in a few more slides ahead. Our next letter is robust. This is kind of like a bigger abstract concept or principle, but this is where we make sure we safeguard ourselves so we can anticipate new advances in technology, where we future-proof our content and our ecosphere the best that we can. And this makes sure we can include new technologies in the future. A robust principle also includes using proper HTML structure and tags in our documents, using content, table of contents and such, and table nesting. You want to, again, robust also includes the concept that sounds a lot like operable, where we rely on one interaction method. We don't want to rely on one interaction method. That keeps us robust if we have multiple modes of support. And if we keep following our best WCAG, this allows us to evolve, allows technology to evolve with you. All right, this is a good time to stretch your neck, get a drink of water. We can take a couple questions. I think Trinette is going to help me moderate, but we do have a lot more to cover ahead. I'm going to cover examples in a few slides here. Do you have any questions?
I do not see any questions yet, Oz. You
All
must be
right.
explaining it so clearly that everybody is just following along without any confusion.
All right. All right. Let's go. We looked at the framework, we looked at the recipes, and now let's start looking at some of those finished recipes in this cookbook and see how good they look. We're going to look at some examples of those principles that we just talked about, the pour. The big one, everyone knows about alt text. What to do about alt text? Simply, again, we know alt text is where we added a description of the image in our content. And the number one question I always get is, how do I know if I need alt text? One thing I like to ask myself is, if I were to cover up the image or remove the image from the document, does it still make sense? Well, the question, if this document here had something to do with this cat, and if I covered up that cat, does this document still make sense? That's up to you to determine, but this is a simple little test that I like to figure out, is if the document still makes sense or not, with or without that image. Well, it's actually a trick question. You always need alt text. It doesn't matter if you tag it decorative or you have to add a description. And so the description would be cat in front of a crowd DJing, something like that. But if it was not relevant to the document, I could tag it as decorative. So this is a little moment I want to say that you don't need to feel overwhelmed, because not everything needs alt text in the way that you think it does. Like if I were to tag the slide right here, this little purple bar would not need an alt text. That would be marked as decorative. The little icon in the lower right, not relevant, marked as decorative. So don't feel overwhelmed by any future workload you might think you have. You already know a lot, and a lot of the stuff is already done for you. So that's an example of perceivable in the alt text, the big alt text monster. And from Section 508 website themselves, they say if an image does not contain information that is necessary for the reader to understand the main content and is pure decoration or is used only for visual formatting, it is decorative. So, hope you can breathe a little bit of sigh of relief. It's not that big of a thing to tackle. Another thing that follows under perceivable is whenever we have a form and there's an asterisk marked on the form, but there's nothing telling me what that asterisk is wanting me to do in this form, what is required. And all you need to do here is you just need to add a required, or you say first name must be required, email must be entered. This might sound a lot like stating the obvious, and it kind of is, but that means, again, empowering you. You already know what you're doing, and you already have a lot of knowledge about accessibility already. So just making sure you see this going forward, you'll make sure things are more inclusive. It's kind of a thing where now that you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Operable concept, where we talked about how we make sure a website can be navigated between multiple methods of input, whether it's voice or keyboard. And we're actually going to go into a little demo mode here. What I mean by operable and being able to navigate using something other than your mouse is if I were to load up a website and I hit the tab button on my keyboard. Oh, let me focus the window. Oh, I am on the wrong computer. Come here. There we go. The red tab pops up. And if I were to continue to hit tab, it goes through all the menus. I can hit spacebar, that navigates the page to go down. But if I hit enter, that'll get me to the next link, or I can keep navigating around like such. Let's even do another familiar page. And if I hit tab, as soon as it loads up, it says I can either skip to the content, and I would skip to the content by hitting enter, and I keep navigating around, and I hit login. That's navigating by other than your mouse. All right. Back to our slide deck here. Under our next letter, we have understandable. This is again where we run into a website or phrasing on a link that says click here or more info. That's too broad, that's too generic, that's bad practice. We needed just to be more specific. And in that situation, we would just make sure to have our link say download the lesson plan and not say download here. Or we would say view homework for work 3, not click here for more information. We need to make sure our links are descriptive so that even when a screen reader is reading the link out loud to a user, the user knows what's happening and the user is not read HTTP Google Docs, blah, 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 blah. They don't know where that goes. So that's something you need to consider when you're putting in your descriptive links. Another understandable example is whenever we're using big language, like I mentioned earlier. You're posting about, usually this happens when you're posting about a school policy or something happening in the ecosphere. We use sometimes complex language that is specific to that organization or that industry, such as, pardon me, the pedagogical framework herein delineates the instructional paradigms leveraged for cognitive acquisition. We wouldn't want to use that kind of language. We don't want to use that. That is bad for translators. That's bad for anything trying to get read to anybody else. That it's just the message is not going to get across. Complex words are not great. They're not universal. And again, our automatic translating tools are going to have a tough time at that. Keep your language simple. A lot of the times people employ AI tools in here, and I'll cover that in a couple slides later. But keep your language simple. You don't need to impress anybody here. Another situation where you've run into some understandable compliance issues is whenever you're handed a lesson plan or a PDF and a big block of text, it's not segmented, it's hard to scan through. Again, screen readers won't be able to navigate that very easily. And it's a very easy solution. It's something you've already been doing. A lot, again, I want to show is already built into you what you're doing. All you do is just break it into sections and add some H2, H3 tabs. It's much easier to scan. And so we're going to show you an example here real quick. You get a big gobbledygook of text, all our eyes have just glazed over, right? This is nobody's scanning through this. That's why it's common practice that we would break it up like this. This is what we break it into. We add a H2 tag and we label this as text. And now it's much pleasier on the eyes. So again, you already make compliance things. Now we're just adding a little final touches to it. Robust, the big abstract concept. This includes things like doing something we've all been guilty of and sharing a screenshot of some text and sharing that screenshot through an email or whatever. I'm here to say stop doing that, because you cannot copy paste things off a screenshot of a text. Screen readers can't read that either. So no more screenshots. What we're going to do is that we're going to either copy and paste that actual stuff into an email or a PDF or a Word document. If you must, for some reason, include a screenshot, maybe there's also an image on there or something, include the information that's on the image in the text that's accompanying the screenshot. We'll go into more of that later. But again, this is better for everybody because you can also then search what it is that you're looking for. You can't search an image like that per se. And again, this is going to help our visually impaired users with their technologies. Another robust situation, again, that we've all encountered is just using, this situation is covering bad websites that don't have a mobile adaptive design. You guys most likely won't run into this, but I want to just make this point to show that it isn't just educators, it isn't just administrative professionals, but everybody is in this accessibility workload. Web developers, technology developers, everybody has a bit to burden to share, a burden to share in making sure everyone is adaptive. But I do get into a little bit of this because I do some web development, and it is fascinating to me how it all integrates. But this is where the robust concept happens to come in play when you have those bad mobile designs. Now, you might have noticed that some of these concepts kind of sound alike. They blend a lot together. That's totally true. And I'm not fooling you. I'm not trying to trick you. And I'm just, again, trying to highlight a lot of this stuff isn't so much you already know a lot of this stuff. We know you know that about heading tags or making sure your table of contents is nested correctly. That table of contents stuff is very similar to what you find in websites, and making sure websites navigate the same way. And those header tags, that header tag concept, that falls under the principal and the operable concept for WCAG accessibility. You also noticed the alt text that was under perceivable. Well, alt text would also kind of fall under robust, and it would fall under robust because if an image didn't load properly, we have the alt text there letting me know, oh, that was the image of a cat DJing in the crowd. So your image failed, but your document was still getting the message across, and that means that's a definition of robust. So don't be surprised that if you're getting a little confused, like that sounded like this one, it sounds like all of them. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Accessibility is a combination of them all, and it's more and less than others. And it's never going to be, black and white. It's all very organic and liquid, to how much accessibility you use for each content. Pit stop, any questions yet? Drink break, stretch your neck, check your posture.
Well, we did have, I would say, a tongue-in-cheek question from Emily. Emily, do you want to tell her yourself, or would you like me to read her
No, I
your
can.
message?
You mentioned screenshots as, just to be clear, what about Canva graphics that have lots of words in them?
Nope. No graphics with words. If you're trying to get a message across, don't put it in an image. You can make an image, of course, yes, but if you have an accompanying document to go with your Canva graphic with text on it. If you're trying to convey a message, then you need the text accompaniment.
Any other questions?
So would that concept be the same with social media if you have the graphic with a lot of text on it from Canva, you have the description that has the same information in it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And there are ways of including this information without it feeling like overwhelm. And that is one of the things I found the most about addressing accessibility isn't so much about lack of skill, but it's our workflows and our own kind of like idiosyncrasies when it comes in experiencing the websites and internet. And it's just kind of tweaking how we operate more than anything else. And thankfully, I'll cover this in a slide in a few slides ahead, but Instagram and social media, a lot of them do provide alt text, but they don't take care of like the alt text saying it's a flyer and you're trying to make like a school meet day. They won't interpret text. It's not reading the OCR text like a PDF. Okie dokie. All right, the beans and butter of our presentation here. We're gonna go how we would test some things. We're gonna go over some tools. We're gonna go over some tips. Thankfully, it's not as hard as it used to be. There are all kinds of tools that make it really, really easy to do. A lot of your current products and a lot of your vendors already have guardrails set in place. I can't think of actually any productivity software that doesn't have some kind of accessibility tool with it, because you can't be a successful product if you don't have an accessibility product anymore, a tool with it. So if it doesn't have an accessibility tool, you probably shouldn't be using it. One of the first tools I'm going to talk about that you probably won't use them that much, but I want to, reveal what's going on under the hood. It provides transparency, how things work. One of the tools I do use a lot myself is called the Wave tool. And this is going to give me a peek of what's going on underneath the hood of a website. And this is actually a tool that I would recommend you check out. Don't let it eat up a lot of your time, but again, it's going to provide some insight where it'll provide you exactly where everything is broken down. It's very safe. It does not send data anywhere. It's all interpreted on your local computer. You can use it on private websites. It does not send anything to AI. There's nothing interpreted. So it's a very good, powerful tool. I'll do a little demo of that here. And the Wave tool is a browser extension that you can install and where you end up right clicking on any web page. And I go Wave this page. And you'll see all kinds of these tags. We have ARIA and what is this? What is that? What are all these little icons mean? What's going on? Oh, there's the H2. I said something about H2. Oh, and H1. What's all that? This is some of the breakdown of those tags I was talking about and knowing how a screen reader would navigate and how we were tabbing through. But it highlighted 0 errors, which is great, but there's some contrast issue. And so we're going to click on details to break that down for me. Click on that and it highlights me down here. Right here, it says, oh, it doesn't really like that contrast issue, that contrast right there. So you can adjust that. Usually a lot of the times you can fix this in your browser on your web builder, easy peasy fix there. And if you like to get really nerdy, you can go down into the code and get really explorative there. Again, this isn't really a tool a lot of you will be using, but if you're a curious cat like I am, definitely worth a check out and gives you more insight. We're going to talk about documents. We're going to go over a brief overview of how we would go over accessibility in Adobe Acrobat, Microsoft Word, and Google Docs. Each app is going to have their pros and cons. Not one does everything. So you'll find one that works best with your workflow and with your work ecosphere and your workplace and your work suite. First up to bat is Adobe Acrobat, which is a very powerful accessibility tool. It can get into the weeds and the nitty gritty when it comes to tagging forms and making sure they're accessible. You can adjust reading order, you can have an alternative text again. And it's great for understanding how, again, documents are broken down the way they are, if you like to get into the hood like that. We're going to go to an example here. Download our document. And a thing to note, when you're trying to check a PDF for accessibility, let's download this guy. Make sure you're opening it up inside Adobe Acrobat, not viewing the PDF in your browser. That's not going to give you the check. You've got to open up the PDF in Adobe Acrobat separately. To check accessibility, you click that down. They really bury it down there. This is kind of a bad taste, but I think you can actually change the order of your tools. You're going to click Prepare Accessibility. You're going to check for accessibility. Hit Start Checking. And then you get a little report over here. There's 2 issues. Uh-oh. Oh, not really issues, okay? Every PDF is going to make you manually check the logical reading order. Go read up what logical reading order means if you'd like. It's very fascinating. But all it means is that does it make sense? Does it flow? That's all that really means. And I'm going to give that a pass. Color contrast needs a manual check. It can't really tell. And I know this is just a decorative image, so I'm going to give that a pass. And then it's all saved. Going into tagging and remediating PDFs is a very fun monster to explore, and I might be developing a course on that later on. But we all have encountered those like large LCAP reports of 100 pages, and how do we get those accessible? We'll talk about that in a few slides down the road. So that's checking accessibility, checking our PDFs. Let's go back to our presentation. And in the next screen here are some other examples of errors you might have encountered in a bad PDF, or not a bad PDF, just a PDF that needs to get fixed up. There's no bad PDFs per se. Our next tools that we love to use is we got Microsoft Word. It's got its own really nice accessibility checker and a really good tool to help you with your heading structure and maintaining. Let's get this. Maintaining our formatting. And Google Docs also has some accessibility features, not as powerful as Microsoft Word, but when you use the 2 apps, you can definitely get the job done. Just a couple of screenshots here of the 2, but I will be going into some demos here. Our first demo is going to be Microsoft Word. Allow. I am doing this example in the Microsoft Word browser version, and it's pretty much similar if you're using Microsoft Word on your desktop, if you have the standalone app. But here, it's showing you the styles, the heading styles, and here it's showing this is the text style that's going on there. So that's letting you know that is properly tagged. And if I were to go for accessibility, I click on review. I'm going to give check accessibility. Again, we get the little bar. Last checked at 12:41. Let's do a little quick recheck to make sure it's refreshed. And it says I'm good in all businesses here. Nothing I need to fix. If there was something to fix, it would be highlighted. I would click on it. I should have pulled up a bad document to remediate, but we got a lot to cover here. So that's what you kind of experience if you were checking in Microsoft Word. And they also have, if you're on the desktop version, they have a bar at the bottom that lets you know as you go. And it gives you suggestions whenever you need to clean up text. So I actually, for once, favor a Microsoft product over a Google product. Microsoft Word is a better tool to use if you're trying to compose compliant documents from the source. Then we got Google Docs, our little Google friend here. Again, you see the same styles again, similar to Microsoft Word, lets you know that that's a heading. Again, and this is text. We're going to do the accessibility checker for here. And all it really does here is it allows you to turn on screen reader support and Braille support. I have not had too much experience in this yet, but your district might have, so definitely something to explore. That's that. Going too far. Accessibility, Google Docs, yes, definitely moving on. Make sure I didn't want to spoil anything. Those troublesome documents, those large LCAT PDFs, or our favorite HR calendars, they love to use. If you can't get these compliant, just remake the document. If you can't remediate it, recreate it. And don't be afraid to employ AI tools in this instance. Of course, do not put anything in these tools that include personal identifying information, but calendar days and stuff, that's all public information. Anything that would be shared to like a board meeting minute, board agendas, that's all public information. So I wouldn't be afraid to send that through a chatbot. Say you want to get your calendar days in order. I would take this PDF, hey, chatbot, use whatever one you want, turn this PDF into a bulleted list, or there's different ways you can get to it, different methods. So if you can't make it compliant, just recreate it. Canva, our tools in Canva. Canva does do alt text. It can make sure you have a set of template fonts that are readable so you don't get people playing with papyrus or weird calligraphy fonts. It can put up guardrails. It can also support captions for videos. It does do color contrast warnings. And you can download your PDFs in accessible formats. You can do brand accounts where essentially you can like lock in colors so people don't go off the rails. But I have to have a warning. I need to warn that Canva is notoriously inconsistent in its exports. This is where I have, again, the message is like these tools will do a lot of work for you, but it's still beholden upon you to double check the work. I have had multiple times where I would export a slideshow from Canva thinking it was all tagged correctly, but then when I put it in PDF and when I open it up in Acrobat and Acrobat scanned it, Acrobat gave me like thousands of errors. And there's different rhymes and reasons of why that goes that way. But again, always double check your work. Don't rely 100% on these tools, but I do want to show you what it can do. We're going to make a copy of this so we can view it. Just open up a copy. We go over here to File, Accessibility, check Design Accessibility. And what do you know? I passed the test. But let's do a little thing. Let's break the test. All right, see how that popped up right away? There's already an issue, an alternative text. What's that issue? Oh, because I got the phone here. So it is pretty powerful in that sense, but again, double check your work anytime you export products from any platform. It's always good practice just to double check your work. And let's get that. Let's make this back to full screen again, the real full screen. Okay, oh, it didn't work, whatever. Still effective. And again, the screenshots we just covered in case that hadn't worked, I put those up there so you can see what those might look like whenever you check out Canva. Our other favorite tool, YouTube, does have some really good compliance tools for you. It does do some auto captions. You can also then edit those captions. But you still need to, again, check your work. It does support keyboard navigation. This is great. And it does support playback speed and controls. I speed up my YouTube videos a lot of the time, but I do sometimes slow them down. And as I mentioned, it's very important that we check our captions because yours truly, what I suffered from a very interesting interpretation of my name on a YouTube video once. Yeah. So, people were very, very important to check these. And I'm surprised I hadn't noticed this before. And it's probably happened many, many, many times, and I just never noticed. So It's a powerful tool in your YouTube editor. You can go and edit your subtitles, and it provides the transcript. And all I did was I politely called this organization. I talked to their communications officer. I'm like, hey, by the way, my name. And they quickly changed it, and it was fixed immediately. So perfect example of it's important to double check your captions. This was from a live stream. And so, of course, you might not have the opportunity in the moment to take care of those captions, but it doesn't hurt to go through and check it. YouTube is actually a really cool hack in a way to get auto captions. A question I heard a lot in the conferences is what is your captioning software? What caption software do you use? And I heard multiple times just upload it to YouTube, keep it offline, and then extract the transcript that they generate for you. And that's a good little tip to use if you're trying to get some captions or extract some information, and you can cruise through that real quickly. So that's our YouTube tip. And our tools, again, Instagram already does alt text. Instagram already does captions. I do captions on my stories all the time for my personal friends because I know often than not, they are environments where they can't hear. But if I have captions, they can still participate in my stories and do whatever. So those are already built in, and you do still need to check those because they get those wrong frequently. Your website platforms, they also provide a lot of tools, but it is not foolproof. They're just guardrails. It is still up to you to make sure your website editors know how to use the contrast checks, make sure they are not messing up the formatting. But all these major platforms, Edleo, Final Site, Apogee, Smart Sites, they all have alt text generators. They'll have color contrast checks. You can also, some sites have upload restrictions. This is really great. And it provides a little sense of relief for organizations. You can also, a lot of these websites will restrict editing restrictions. So you don't have to worry about somebody worrying in a page. And all kinds of other add-ons are available from these platforms to enhance the end user's experience. This is just bonus credit and other resources to check in on your offline time. I mentioned the word screen reader a lot. This would simulate the experience of what a screen reader would, where if I were to hover my hand or my cursor anywhere over my laptop, it would read aloud that moment. This is something to explore on your own, so you can kind of get a grasp of what it's like, again, for a visually impaired user to use the internet. This is also another little bonus to check out is that a mirror tracing game. This is more tapping into the cognitive experiences. Somebody using might be disabled, might have to use other tools or implements to navigate the internet. This was actually a really fun little game that I played. Definitely worth checking out. If you want more alt text information, Harvard University has a lot of great information. W3C has a great alt decision tree. Great for backup reading, extra credit. Some things you can start doing now is start embracing keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are going to help you a lot here. If you can remember the shortcut that titles something as a heading, that titles something as a heading 2, or if you can quickly format a link with Control K, that'll speed up your workflow and really ingrain compliance into your product. A thing you can do right now, right away, a quick takeaway is to watch your hashtags. Watch your hashtags. We want to make sure we start embracing dashes in our hashtags because if a screen reader is going to read a hashtag with no breakups, it's going to sound very interesting. There are a couple of case naming conventions you can practice, such as camel case, where a lot of people will just uppercase the first word of the phrase. There's also snake case where you get a little underscore, or you have the dash for kebab case. But as we can clearly see here, we would definitely want to put some distinction in our hashtags. Again, this is a very cool, quick, easy, low impact, low effort, high impact thing we can do to make sure all our products and anything put out by our organization is compliant. Another thing we can start doing again is just start doing the work yourself. Try your best to include alt text and captions in your own stuff, in your own product, in your own media. And then also start finding key staff that you know is open to this. Start getting them under your wing. You're going to want to reach out to your tech department, your IT, or whoever is in control of your technology. Ask what tools are already available. If they, what is something that they're not using already that you can implement. Most people, organizations target their newsletters and their calendars and their syllabus for their first wave of compliance and combing through documents. Again, like I said, if you can't make the document compliant, go to the source who is making that document, who in HR is making that calendar. Can you get that person that's in that department trained to make compliant documents? Again, list high impact, low effort stuff with the color contrast, adding alt text, making sure we have just heading structure, make sure it's tagged with a nice broken up sections. You're going to want to, again, form a team or a campaign to make sure that we get everybody involved with compliance. So you want to work with leadership, work with I know we don't want to form like a whole another like committee, but we might have to form some kind of committee, organization, whatever works best for you guys to make sure that this doesn't get left behind. And you get everybody in every department because this involves everybody. This isn't just IT. This isn't just HR because everybody produces something that gets shared with the public. You're going to want, again, this is going to require, regular meetings, however you want to structure that. That's up to your organization and your needs. Again, like I mentioned earlier, addressing accessibility isn't so much about addressing skill sets, but it's about working into your workflows and your own habits. So see how you can integrate it more into stuff from the source. Maybe you can talk to HR during onboarding saying, hey, we are trying to be a compliant organization. If it starts from the source and that message is, continue to push on, that'll help foster it and spread out. And I keep reeling this point home, but again, if you cannot make the document accessible, just recreate it. There isn't going to be a magic solution or a one-size-fits-all for your organization. I'm sorry, bad spoiler alert, but every organization has different needs, different skill sets, different budgets, different unique configurations, and different workflows. So that's why it's important we go this with small strategic changes. And important to, it's not about perfection here. It's just one step towards progress. And it's going to be an ongoing thing. It's always something. You're never going to be finished with accessibility. Ongoing training and support is going to be needed. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Every action you're taking right now, you are already being more inclusive. But it's not about, again, we're not ever going to achieve perfection here. We're going to just keep making progress. Try one more time to add one more piece of alt text. Try to adjust that color scheme. Talk to that one person that's making these flyers like, hey, could you adjust that color just a little bit here and there? You guys work in education. You already know how important accessibility is, and you already are committed to creating inclusive experiences. So you already have the tools and the passion to spread this forth. And it's just one little like extra side piece of flair that you guys already, spread forth into the world. And embracing accessibility just helps enforce your organization itself to reinforce their own values of equity and opportunity. It looks good on everybody. Do you guys remember the first time? I'm going to wrap this up. You remember the first time that you used chopsticks and how awkward that was? Well, how it only took a couple more times after using chopsticks. Now you can inhale sushi. And nothing's stopping you between you and the sushi and those chopsticks or whatever adaptive chopstick item you're using. That's the way I want you to think of like compliance here and accessibility training. It's awkward now. There's weird words in your mouth and these weird tags. What is she talking about? You already know more than you did yesterday, and I hope you feel empowered by that. And each day you're going to actually become more and more empowered because you've started embedding that in your workflow. So you have definitely got this. And if you guys have any questions, you're definitely welcome to reach out to me if we don't get to them in this chat. Hopefully I have enough time to cover some. Yeah, Trinette, you can hand those off to me and I can get those going.
Sure. One of the ones I seen here from Rebecca is not so much a question, but she added in with another tooltip. So I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to share that a little bit more about that.
Sorry, I've been eating lunch, so I didn't have my camera on, my audio on.
We
Hi,
understand.
Rebecca. Hi, Oz. Yeah, so I just wanted to suggest Descript as another easy transcript creator, because they do allow on the free tier, I think it's over an hour worth of recording. And I really like using that sometimes for the transcript, because it is one click to edit out all of the filler words or any
Oh.
repeat words and things like that. And so if it's something that needs that level of polish, I know that I'm guilty of using a lot of filler words. And sometimes when I look at a transcript and we see that visually, we don't tend to hear it as distinctly, but when you see it, it makes it more obvious that skill could be worked on a bit, I suppose. And so, for optics sake, I really appreciate that tool is like one click to get rid of all of those instead of having to go through manually.
Yeah, I just pulled that up. And so she said it was Descript, and that's descript.com. If you Google it, it'll pop right up for you guys. I'm going to check into this. Thank you for that.
Wonders of AI. Any other questions for Oz or comments? More down here, two more. Oh, well, that's the note taker. Just everyone saying how wonderful it is. And I completely agree. Oz, I cannot thank you enough. I anticipate seeing a lot more of you, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but these rules and guidelines and tools tend to evolve very, very quickly. So I feel very grateful that we have someone like Oz that is keeping track of all of this and help keeping us informed. As we close up, I did want to share a few more things that are happening at CalSPRA in the next month or so. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the chat with the links to register. By the way, if you know some folks that would benefit from these things, most of our events are completely free to attend, and we also consider them friend-raising opportunities. So if you have folks that you think would benefit from some of this content, please feel free to invite them. We love to have other folks jump in and gain the wisdom of the enormous talent base that is the CalSPRA membership. So on August 21st, we have Transforming Engagement, Rebranding Through Trust, Inclusivity, and Strategic Communication. On August 29th, we have our monthly office hour. If you're not familiar with what that is, myself and one or more board members grab our coffee. It's usually the last Friday of the month at 9:30. And we hang out and chat about anything you need to talk about, because sometimes working in communications can be a very lonely place to be, and not everybody understands what you do, but we do. This month, we will be talking about the call for presenters for the CalSPRA conference. Can you guys believe it? We're already talking about March 2026. And so, Oz, I can't wait to see what you propose to talk about. Then on September 3rd, we have Entering the Algorithm, a guide to organic growth on Instagram. And then on September 17th, we have Boost Productivity by Streamlining Your Production Processes. And I know that sounds incredibly dry, but I know the team presenting that, and they always have amazing systems tips that I steal from all the time. So I know that you will enjoy it as well. Thanks again, Oz. This was fantastic. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for highlighting all the CalSPRA stuff. So now I know where my work is and the things that I need to update to make sure that we're even better. I will stick around for anyone that has individual questions, but thank you everyone for attending today. You will receive a recording of this, and please do join us for another future CalSPRA event. Have a great weekend.